We have part 6 to discuss today. This felt like a fairly long one. I think so far it's been the longest part and probably will be the longest part. Looking at how much remains of my book now that I've finished this part. Look at that teeny little bit. But this was chapters 22 through 28. And I feel like a lot of this could just be shorthanded to that this part is essentially the denouement of the story, or the untying of the knot where things finally start getting explained. I'm not really pleased with some of how that ended up working out. Not necessarily the solution of things, because I knew the solution was probably going to be weird with all the various things that had been going on, but just like some of the execution I thought was really stupid. For example, we open in chapter 22, and it opens with her being like, I was trapped, and then going back and explaining how she got trapped, like hearing a knock on her door, seeing the woman from cabin 10, who's miraculously still alive, and then she follows her into a staff room, gets bonked on the head, etc. Whereas I don't know why it opened with, I've been stuck in this room, blah. It would have made more sense, I feel like, to just open with her sitting panicked in her room, hearing the knock on the door, seeing the woman in cabin 10, and following her. And frankly, I think that if that had been at the end of, chapter 21 that we just had, and then we cut to a newspaper scene that talks about the body and speculating that it might be low, that probably would have been the only way that the speculation about it being low would have made me feel like it actually was low, because everything thus far has just been like, well, there's still the girl from cabin 10 who's unaccounted for, but at least from the context of what we get in that section of her seeing the woman from cabin 10 and following her, we assume that there's no body based on that. And so that would have been an appropriate time, I feel like, to try and do a true red herring bait and switch thing and be like, oh no, Lo is dead, they found her body. But as this part progresses, we discover that there's still an unaccounted body, and so missed opportunity. Anyway, so Lo gets captured in this room, and she does do a little bit of screaming, trying to get people to hear her. She makes one attempt to escape when food is being delivered to her, so I guess technically she's been a bit of an active character. But this is, 22 to 28 is 6 chapters, and the entire time she's captured, and there's 2 attempts to escape. It was very much a slog in that sense. I was like, I feel like you're the protagonist, you've been abducted. I get that some of it was probably driven by the fact that she didn't have her meds and was going a little crazy and was panicking and freaking out because of that, and thus didn't have the mindset to be trying to escape. But I still feel like she could have tried more, and that I expect a protagonist to try more. And I was just very frustrated with how little trying to escape she actually did in these bits. And then it was weird too in her one escape attempt where she tries to get out when the food is being delivered. She catches the woman in cabin 10 trying to give her food, etc. And then, instead of just leaving her locked up, woman in cabin 10 comes in and decides to have a nice little chat with her, which ends up being good for Lo, because out of it she agrees not to try to get out again, but that she gets her meds back so she can stop feeling like she's going crazy. So kind of a win-win, I guess, but not really. I still think Lo should have tried to escape again, but that's me. And then through her conversation with the woman from cabin 10, we end up discovering that the woman from cabin 10 is Anne Bulmer, except for not really, because the other body that is the unaccounted body was Anne Bulmer, and this woman's pretending to be Anne Bulmer, and she didn't recognize that she was pretending to be Anne Bulmer because Anne Bulmer has been suffering from cancer, and this girl obviously has hair, etc., whatever. So, it's obviously a wig and whatever, but I was like, this story has gone very oddly, and for me personally, I don't feel like the motivation of, oh, I'm going to kill my spouse for their money ever really makes much sense, especially in a case like Sir Bulmer, Lord Bulmer, because his wife has been dying of cancer for like 4 years. So if you really wanted to off her, you have a convenient excuse of, oh, she just lost her fight with cancer, but instead he goes through this convoluted body switching thing and dumping her off the side of a boat, and I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, I guess I will say that seeing this, it kind of explains perhaps where the burglary of the guy who was going to be in cabin 10 came into play, and that perhaps that was to try to keep that guy from being in cabin 10 so they had an empty cabin and they could do their body bait and switch. So that's sort of explaining some things, but I'm still just like, why? Why? Why would you do it this way? You've got the convenient excuse of just being like, she lost her fight with cancer, and you don't go that route, which would be the easier route. I don't get it. But yeah. And then to finish off this, like we were talking about with these other clips that they've put at the end of the parts, this one is instead an email that Judah's sending out to a bunch of people about Lowe, and he's like, we don't want you hearing this speculation from the news media because it's already been spilled to them, but Scotland Yard sent me these photos that are obviously Lowe's clothes, and so we're devastated by this news that she seems to be dead, etc. And I'm just like, at least context for me, knowing A, that Lowe's alive for one, and B, that they've been sneaking into Lowe's cabin the entire time. I'm just like, this is, again, kind of pathetic storytelling, because it's like, I still don't buy that the body is Lowe, because we still have Anne Bulmer's body unaccounted for, and it would have been easy enough to just steal some of Lowe's clothes. They could have even dressed Anne Bulmer in Lowe's clothes if they wanted to. But in any case, they could have easily snuck into Lowe's cabin and stolen some of her clothes and thrown them overboard, knowing that they would wash up on shore and that people would recognize the clothes. But just pictures of clothes that are clearly Lowe's is not definitive proof of her being dead. So I still don't buy that the body is Lowe. So if you really wanted to steal that Ruth Ware, you should have executed it completely differently. There shouldn't have been any mention of it until we see the woman in cabin 10 is still alive, and then you stop there, and then you give me a body is found and it looks like Lowe. And then I would be like, oh, there's some chance that Lowe actually doesn't make it through this story. But the way it's been executed, I have no doubt that the body is Anne Bulmer and that they just threw some clothes overboard. So, that is that. But, yeah, so, I mean, it was a really long part overall, but a really boring and frustrating part at the same time, because we did get some conclusions about the story and the kind of mystery that's been going on. But at the same time, we had just a very passive Lowe who hardly did anything to even try to get out, and I was just very frustrated with the whole thing. I was like, I'm so tired of her just being this passive character. She's kind of been investigating throughout the story, but now she's locked up, and she's the most passive she's ever been. She makes a couple minor attempts to escape, and then just kind of completely gives up on the whole thing. Anyways, I'm interested to see how she gets out, since her attempts to get out have not yielded anything, and she's not really trying to get out on her own anymore. So, I'm assuming that the fake Anne Bulmer is going to come and take her away, but who knows? We'll see. Hopefully the rest of the book is interesting. It's really not much left, so I will definitely still be finishing it, and it'll be fun to talk about with my book group, I think. See if they felt like she was way too passive in this bit too. But yeah, that's all I've got for now. If you happen to be reading along and have read this section and have any thoughts on why she was so passive or anything like that, I'd be happy to hear them. But that's all I've got for now. This is the Emma Harper signing out.